You know, I've been thinking about Joseph Smith and Brigham Young lately. It's incredible how they shaped the LDS Church.
Oh, absolutely. Their impact is huge. But what specifically caught your attention?
Well, Joseph Smith, he was just 14 when he had that first vision in 1820. Can you imagine being that young and claiming to have seen God in Jesus Christ?
It's mind-blowing, yeah. And that vision really set everything into motion, didn't it?
Exactly. It was the cornerstone of LDS theology. Then, just a few years later, he says an angel named Moroni showed him golden plates.
Right.
He translates them into the Book of Mormon.
The whole idea of Reformed Egyptian writing on golden plates is fascinating.
Yeah, and then in 1830, he officially establishes the church. He introduced some pretty unique doctrines, like continuing revelation and celestial marriage, which included polygamy.
Polygamy is definitely one of the more controversial aspects.
For sure.
Yeah.
And because of these teachings, they faced intense persecution. They had to keep relocating. Kirtland, Independence, Nauvoo. It was relentless.
It's tragic how much they suffered. And Joseph Smith even ran for president in 1844, didn't he?
He did. He was advocating for religious freedom and social reforms. But sadly, that same year, he and his brother Hiram were killed by a mob while jailed in Carthage, Illinois.
Such a pivotal moment. Do you think his death could have been avoided?
Perhaps if tensions were diffused earlier, but the climate was so hostile.
True.
His death left the church in turmoil.
And that's when Brigham Young stepped in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Born in 1801, he joined the church in 1832 and quickly rose through the ranks.
He was a natural leader, wasn't he?
Absolutely. After Smith's death, there was a leadership crisis, but Young, leading the quorum of the 12 apostles, took charge. He became the second president in 1847.
And he led the monumental Mormon exodus westward.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
In 1846, he organized the move to the Salt Lake Valley. Can you imagine orchestrating such a massive relocation?
It's like leading an entire nation across uncharted territory.
Right. Upon arriving, he established Salt Lake City and oversaw settlements across the West. He emphasized self-reliance and communal living.
But he also strongly advocated for polygamy, which continued to cause controversy.
Yes, he practiced it extensively, had 55 wives and 56 children.
That's astonishing. Do you think that helped or hindered the church's growth?
Well, it's complicated. It solidified the community internally, but externally, it drew criticism and
Exactly.
conflict. It's one of those paradoxes.
You know, while Young was a strong leader, some might argue that his strict control and polygamy practices hindered broader acceptance of the church.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
His leadership style was very pragmatic, sometimes at the expense of inclusivity.
But without his organizational skills, the church might not have survived those early years in Utah.
Exactly. He even served as the first governor of the Utah Territory, blending religious and political leadership.
And let's not forget the Salt Lake Temple.
Oh yes. He initiated its construction, a project symbolizing the faith's dedication, but it took 40 years to complete. He didn't live to see its dedication.
So when we contrast Smith and Young, it's like Smith was the visionary and Young was the builder.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Smith introduced the doctrines, while Young implemented them practically.
Their leadership styles were so different. Smith was more of a spiritual guide, while Young was an administrator.
Yeah, and they faced different challenges too. Smith dealt with foundational opposition and persecution, whereas Young managed the logistics of relocation and community building.
Their legacies reflect that. Smith is remembered as the martyr and spiritual father, and Young as the organizer who ensured survival and growth.
Exactly. Without Smith, there would be no LDS Church, but without Young, it might not have lasted.
It's fascinating how their contributions complement each other.
It really is.
Yeah.
Together, they shaped a movement that continues to thrive today.
You know, it's like they were two sides of the same coin.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks.
Vision and execution, hand in hand.
So, what do you think is the biggest takeaway from their stories?
I think it's the power of leadership in different forms.
Right.
Visionaries need builders to realize the dream, and builders need visionaries to guide them.
Absolutely. and perhaps despite controversies, their dedication and resilience are truly inspiring.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Their legacy lives on in the millions of LDS members worldwide.
It's been great discussing this with you. Learned a lot today.
Same here. Always a pleasure diving into history like this.